Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the 8th concession. My name is Natalie, and we're here in southern Ontario on a rather chilly April morning. It's still pretty cold here. We had a warm spell, and now it's cooled down again, and I think we're going into the negative overnight for the next week, but despite that, spring is officially here, and I know it will get warmer. So I thought today we would take a look around the property so you could see what we're working with in terms of our land and our plans for how we want it to change. So let's start right behind me here in our little mini orchard. So this is our little orchard. Now, there are only the two of us, well, the three of us living here, my husband and myself and our youngest daughter, who will live with us permanently. So we don't need millions of fruit trees. We have to be realistic about what we're going to use in a year. So here we have, at the far end, 2 apple trees. The one on the left is a Mac cross, and the one on the right, closest to the driveway, is a Gala cross. Now, I like using Macs for baking. I like the sort of tartness of them, and I like Galas for eating. So those are the 2 apple trees. And then here, the middle 2 are cherry trees. The one closest to the driveway is a sweet cherry, and that's for eating. And the one farther away is a sour cherry, which I will use again for baking. And then the last 2, here the one closest, is a peach tree. Now, it is said to be hardy for our zone 5B. So unless we have some extreme weather, should be okay. And I'm looking forward to having some peaches. And the far tree is a red Bartlett pear. And I can't wait to eat that. Apparently the red Bartletts are even a bit sweeter than the yellow Bartletts. Now at the far end, you can see that large tree is actually an apple tree that the previous owners must have planted. And we've had apples off it. They're good to eat. I don't know what kind they are. And the tree obviously hasn't been pruned or maintained. And it's got a bit of scale on it. We had a very wet summer last year, so I don't know how well it's going to do. Let's go over closer and see how it's doing this spring. So you can see here, not much is happening with it. I don't see a lot of budding. I'm really kind of worried about it. And you can see on some of them, like a bit of a growth there, like a scale of some kind. So I don't know, maybe it's just too early. Maybe it'll still bounce back. I hope so. And I have to also apologize for the airplane sounds in the distance. We're near an airfield, and some of the pilots practice maneuvers some days, loop-the-loops, and so it can be a bit noisy at times. So beyond the orchard, we have this part of our property. Now this delightful building here is what we affectionately refer to as our Slug Hut. This was here on the property when we bought it, and our one daughter, when she saw the listing photos, said that looks like a giant white slug. And so the Slug Hut was born. And that's how we refer to it. Our long-term plans include restoring it to a nice wooden barn, but we don't know how quickly we'll be able to do that. So for now, the Slug Hut. And beyond the Slug Hut is our pond. Let's go have a closer look. So this is the pond. It's a decent size. It's not massive. I don't think it's big enough for us to have any sort of food fish. Oh, the ducks are here. We have a pair of ducks, wild mallards, who've been visiting our pond. There was a female that they were fighting over. So I don't know where she is at the moment. Our pond also has snapping turtles. Now they are protected here in Ontario, so we can't do anything to disturb them. We really only see them in the spring when they come out of the pond and make this long trek where they nest sort of in the sandy shoulders of the road, which is an odd place, I think, to nest, but they've been doing it for years. And then they make the trek back across our lawn and back into the pond here. Not quite sure how many we have. Oh, the ducks are beautiful, though. So that's our property beyond the pond. A bit to those cedar trees you might be able to see in the distance. A little bit past them. That is all wilderness over there, and our plans are to let it stay that way. Around the pond, though, you can see a lot of reeds and grasses, and we would like to reclaim around the pond. Have a nice path going around it, and grass and flowers. Down alongside our slug hut here, we have our berry bushes. You can see they were fenced for the winter, and I haven't taken them down yet. The main culprit seems to be the rabbits, and now that the grass is out, I think it's safe to take the fencing down as they can eat something else, but we really did a number on them last year. This is a bit of a flower garden here at the front, which needs weeding. So these are our ever-bearing raspberries along here. They need to be pruned, weeded, and the fence taken down, so that's a job for this week as long as the weather holds. And beyond them, with the fence coming down, are our blackberries. Now these were planted by the previous owner. We didn't actually know they were here at first. There were so many weeds here. But last year we had the most amazing crop of blackberries. Now there's only about 3 bushes, but I'm hoping that they'll spread and have more. The problem with the blackberries, you might be able to see this, is the rabbits are actually living under the slug hut. So the fencing didn't work at all, and you might be able to see some damage on the blackberry canes. You can see where they've chewed. But the blackberries will bounce back, but they also need a good pruning from to take off last year's berry canes and weeding, and the fence coming down. At the back of our slug hut we have some storage for wood, although we don't have our fireplace yet. That is in our plans. And of course our chicken coop. Let's go see how the ladies are this morning. Morning, girls. They are, I believe, a Rhode Island Red Cross, and they are our laying hens. We do not have a rooster. They're noisy because they think I have a treat for them. But I do not. They've had their treat already. Now, my husband built this coop himself, and used a pattern that he found but modified it. It is very convenient. We really like the security it gives the chickens and the ease with which we can clean it out and collect the eggs. So this trailer here came out of the reeds. So as you can see at the back of the lawn area of our property, we have a lot of these reeds. They're Phragmites. They're an invasive species. Now we've been slowly beating them back, but they are extremely aggressive and extremely invasive, and we don't have any concerns about removing them, as the province of Ontario is looking for ways to decrease their numbers. They are choking a lot of the natural habitat in Ontario. They grow so thick and so aggressively that they choke out the native species. So we don't have any worries about taking this down. What we have noticed when we have taken some of it down is we find things hidden in the reeds. This trailer, for one, now it needs a lot of work, but my husband is planning on restoring it so that we'll have a trailer to use. We also found an actual truck chassis, elevator tool chest, gates, rings, you name it. We actually had a metal bin last year and we filled it with scrap from the reeds. Now, who knows what we'll find in the rest of the reeds. Hopefully not much. You can see some composting going on here. This rotating drum we got from a friend. Ladies, you're so noisy. I haven't been that thrilled with it. I think we're going to keep using our 3-bay. The thing is, it will be moved eventually because this is roughly where I want the chickens to go. Behind the Slug Hut, so we have access to hydro and hopefully in the future water. So these will be moved. But so far they've been working okay. And this right now is also my husband's wood pile where we are collecting wood that needs to be chopped and processed. So this area still needs some work. These are some branches that just came down in the windstorms we had this winter and spring. So they're over here so that they can also be chopped up. So the composts are one of the changes we've already made. And this is the other change we've already made. My raised bed gardens. This is what the area looked like when we first moved in. Nothing but reeds, encroaching quite a ways on to what we call our lawn area. And this is how it looks now. So let's have a closer look. Of course, it's spring. There's a lot of work to be done, clean up and preparing the beds. You can see the blue tarp behind. My husband has picked up some loads of compost so we can fill the beds. You can see that the dirt in them has sunk down quite a bit. But this is what we call the new garden. So you can see here at the front is a small blueberry bed. Now there are 2 in there. There were 3. One was given to me by a friend, but I think it was dead when she gave it to me. I am getting a new blueberry bush this spring from a nursery. And I'm hoping the other 2 come back. You can see there is chicken wire around it because the rabbits here are relentless. And they last year ate my poor blueberries right down to nothing. So the wire went up and I'm hoping this year they fare better. You can see that I have started putting gravel around my beds. I'm hoping to get another load this year. You can see that the beds are made of cinder blocks. We like the permanence of that. We like the idea that unlike wood, which eventually you have to replace, even if it's cedar and it lasts 10 or 12 years, at some point you have to rebuild them. We're kind of looking to minimize the projects we're going to have in the future as we age. And I also like the fact that they're very comfortable to sit on. Makes it very easy to weed and harvest. It's very comfortable. It's also a really nice place just to come down and enjoy the garden, especially when the trellises, these are cattle panel trellises, when they're covered with plants and it's shady and nice. I am going to be hopefully getting some more gravel this year and start filling in between the beds. I also have some weeding to do as well. This property is determined to go wild. Every chance it gets. I think that's true of every property, but this in particular, the reeds want to come back in this space and the weeds. So I will be working on this garden in the next little while. The plan is to expand this garden and to put in 4 more beds behind these 4. So expand the garden back that way. And maybe in the future even 1 more bed across the back. So that we can stop using the old garden, which is over here. So this is what we call the old garden. This was the original garden that was in when we bought the property, that was used by the previous owners. So while we build up the new garden and expand it till it's big enough, I've been using both. You can see that I've planted a few things already, although there's still a lot of work to be done. It's only April. But I've planted the early crops in here because the raised beds needed soil and they weren't ready to plant. So in here I have some peas in the little black cages there. I have some spinach along the fence. I have potatoes down the side, and I have onions planted. So I'm hoping they'll come up soon. Eventually this area will be used as a patio, maybe even a fire pit. But for the time being, it is the old garden. Beyond it, you can see a structure. That is an arbor. We actually hosted my daughter's wedding here last summer. Due to COVID, they couldn't have the wedding they had planned at their venue the year before. They had put it off for a year, and in the end they asked if they could be married on our property where they could maintain a safe distance and have the number of people they wanted. And so we said yes, and so that's actually the arch that was covered with netting and flowers, vines. That's where they actually said their vows. Now that will be moved this year. That's not its permanent home. It's going to be moved over towards the pond to make sort of an entranceway towards the pond, and onto the path that we hope to circle the pond with when we finally reclaim it. Back behind, you can see that forest is all our property. We have 24 acres. Because that land is conservation land, it will stay wooded and unspoiled, and we will just use the about 1.5–2 acres around the house. This little garden's right at the back of our house. It was a bit of a garden. It's a pretty rough garden. These stones were here. I think there was a laundry pole originally on the corner right here by the red door. But eventually, where that window is, this first window, we're going to move the door from here to there. And this garden, hopefully, in the future, will be a little terraced garden. And I'd like it to be my herb garden, because this door will lead into our kitchen area, first through a mudroom and then the kitchen. So this is the beginnings of a tiered herb garden. Right now it doesn't look like much, but I did manage to weed it. You can see there are some lilies right here in the front. They were here. They are native to the area. They are wood lilies. They look a lot like tiger lilies, only they're a nice maroon red. And beyond them is my patch of oregano that I planted last year. There are, in the center there, garlic chives and onion chives. And all the rest of these green things are garlic that I didn't plant. The running joke in my family is once something is planted, once I plant something, it comes back forever. I thought I had pulled up all the garlic from this bed last year, and I did harvest enough for us to eat, but apparently I missed a bunch. So without planting garlic, I have garlic. So now we're on the far side of our house, and the only reason I'm showing this is that beautiful green propane tank and that generator and the new hydrometer. That pretty much was our first year renovation budget gone, as we had to fix some of the infrastructure of the house, which was quite old. We put in a new meter, we put in the whole home generator, which of course needed the propane tank. You know how it is. One thing needs another thing, needs everything. Anyway, it needs to be admired because it was a huge expense and a lot of work. And yeah, sometimes renovations aren't just the pretty stuff. They're the basics that keep your home safe and comfortable. We have other structural things we need to do, but this was the first big one. And since we've lived here, it's like I said, this is our 3rd year. That generator has come on 5 times. We do live rurally. Power goes out. The one time the power was out after a severe windstorm last fall, it was out for 3 days. While it is noisy, It certainly saved us because we still had all our pumps. Everything, of course, in the country runs on an electric pump. Septic pump, water pump, sump pump, not to mention lights and stoves and computers. So it really saved our bacon. So we're very grateful it was put in. That is the front of our property, looking towards the road with some very mature trees. And in the spring, we even find morels. I don't know if there are any morels yet, but they tend to be on our front lawn here. Last year, I think we harvested 10 or 11. Enough for a nice feed. One meal for us, which is fine. It's a lovely, tasty treat to look forward to. I think it's a bit early for them yet, although I am going to have a bit of a look now while I'm here. No morels yet, but it is a bit early. So we've now come full circle around the house, and maybe now you have a bit of an idea of our property. It has some great potential, and we have some neat plans for it. And hopefully this year we can get started on some of those and you can come along. Bye for now.